All right. I guess this is me now, because that's kind of how I feel. There are probably thousands of young men in this country who feel the same way that I do right now. And if you are one of those men who kind of feels like you've been through a little bit of turmoil over the last week, I urge you to watch this, because it might be befitting for you as well. I'm going to preface this with, I've never been a real religious dude. I grew up going to church because it was forced upon me. I went to youth more so for the friendships than I did anything else. When we bowed our heads in prayer, I didn't really pray. When we sang songs, I didn't sing. I didn't really believe any of it. I just kind of went along with it. I started listening to the Sean Ryan Show a year and a half, 2 years ago. He had a guy on, Jim Caviezel, I think his name was. I forget. He was the dude who played Jesus in Passion of the Christ. And every other badass dude that he's had on that podcast, to some extent, is religious. And I don't know why. I cannot explain it. It doesn't make sense to me. Probably similar to how Sean Ryan felt when God was speaking to him, I guess. But I was at work punching data into the computer, and when we heard that Charlie had been shot, and then it probably took 30 to 45 minutes before we found out that he was murdered. During that time, I could feel my blood pressure rose, my heart rate rose, my anger rose. I didn't know what to say, didn't know what to think, pretty pissed. And then he was murdered, and it was like I saw the video, and like a switch went off somewhere in my body where I knew exactly what I needed to do. And I cannot explain it whatsoever. Later in high school, I think it was a junior, maybe I was a senior, it got to the point where my dad was, trying to force me to go to church, and it was like, if you want to force me to go to church tomorrow, you better come in here with your fists up, because I'm gonna hit you. Like, it's gonna go down. Like, luckily I didn't, and I love the crap out of my dad, but especially now, that's where I was at back in the day. And since then, I've had the idea that if I get to the pearly gates and God doesn't let me into heaven just because I didn't believe in him, even though I was a good person my whole life, then so be it, I'll go to hell. I still don't know if any of that's true. I don't know. I don't know anything. I'm an idiot. But what I do know is that I've had this unexplainable gravity weighing down on me, giving a knot in my chest for the last year and a half, 2 years. Every time I hear someone say something great about God or Jesus or whatever, like, I get emotional. I listened to my cousin talk about how he was in, I forget if it was Afghanistan or Iraq, I don't remember. He was in EOD, and he just watched a truck full of like 13 or 14 people blow up from an IUD. And he had to, handle the dead and dying ASAP, and then he had to also clear the road, and he had to do that for 12 hours straight, and he was about to give up, and he said a prayer, and he basically said, like, if I don't find it, kill me now, and he found it. And I hear testimonials about stuff like that, or stuff on the Sean Ryan Show, or any other podcast or show, or whatever that I listen to, and for some reason it strikes a pretty gnarly chord in my body. And I will never be the go to church kind of guy. I will never not cuss. I will never be a Bible thumper. There's no way in hell that that's going to happen. I don't know. And it's been my pride for sure, over the last 10, 15 years, that made me go, I don't need religion. I'm good enough by myself. I don't need to rely on somebody else. I don't even rely on the Bible or God or anything else to be a good, successful husband and father and person in general. I don't need that. I can do that by myself. I think I've been doing a decent job, but I'm far from perfect. Ask my wife. And I think there was a lot of people over the last week who probably had something in them, and they had all this go down, and a switch flipped, and they're just like, all right. I guess this is me now, because that's kind of how I feel. I can't speak on God. I can't quote any freaking Bible verses. I'm not going to pray before my meals. I'm probably not hardly ever going to pray, but there's something that's making me go, goddamn, there's a lot to be done. There's a lot of good that can be done. And I'd be willing to bet there's a lot of men who feel the same way. A few of my friends I've talked to over the last few days, we never talk about religion. We never talk about how we feel or what we think when it comes to our feelings or being emotional. We don't talk about that. And over the last few days, I've talked to a bunch of my friends. We're all totally fine talking about it all of a sudden. So if you felt something similar, it's probably not for no reason. I've always believed, whether I was religious, in the church or not, that everything happens for a reason. Whether we know it or not, everything happens for a reason. I don't know the exact reason why Charlie Kirk was killed, especially as a dude who didn't even know him, who didn't even agree with him on a lot of stuff. But it's pretty clear that something happened, and it happened to more people than just me. So send this to anybody you think might be going through the same shit, because chances are they are. See ya.